Chapter 28, The Convocation. Plops, plops, plops. Klein's shirt suddenly began to beat violently. It contracted into a ball, and then bulged violently, causing her body to shiver slightly. For a moment, he almost forgot what he was going to do, what he was supposed to do, until the figure of the infiltrator paused and turned its ears slightly, as if it had heard it change. The blood drops back from her brain, and Klein returns to basic thinking, puts his hand under the pillow, and grasps the wooden handle of the revolver. The hard, smooth touch came, and his emotions settled quickly, and, in a slow, silent motion, he drew the pistol and aimed it at the infiltrator's head. To be honest, he was not sure whether he could hit, and although he had been able to hit the target steadily before, a moving man and a fixed target were very different concepts, and he was not arrogant enough to confuse the two. However, he vaguely remembered a sentence from a previous life, which roughly meant that the greatest power of a nuclear bomb exists only before it is launched. In this time, and in this environment, the truth is the same. The best deterrent is before the bullet is fired. Do not hook the trigger. Do not blindly hit. The other side will not be sure that he is a rookie, very likely to miss him. He will worry. He will be afraid. He will consider a lot, so that they add their own shackles. In an instant, one idea after another emerged, which made Klein immediately decide that he was not the kind of person who was more critical and more calm, but had long anticipated the scene of encountering the Watchman, and had expected to be dominated by intimidation rather than attack. There is an old saying in the country of big foodies, better prepared than hurt. As Klein pointed his gun at the intruder, the thin man froze, seemingly sensing something. Then he heard a voice with a slight laugh. "Good evening, sir." The thin man's hands quietly grasped. The body seems to have tension. Klein sat on the low bed, with a gun aimed at his head. Tone as leisurely and natural as possible. "Please raise your hands, turn around, and try to slow down. Frankly speaking, I am a timid, nervous person. If you go too fast, I will be frightened. I cannot guarantee that there will be no misfiring situation. Yes, that is the case." The thin man raises his hands half to his head and turns his body a little bit. Klein's eyes are first caught in a black tights with neat buttons, then into thick, sharp brown eyebrows. Klein did not see fear in his blue eyes, but rather the feeling of being stared at by a ferocious beast. As if he were not careful, he would be pounced on and torn to pieces. He tightened his grip on the handle of the gun, trying to keep his expression calm and indifferent. It was not until the thin man was completely facing himself that he lifted his chin, pointed to the door, and said softly and gently, "Sir, let's go out and talk. Don't disturb other people's dreams. Well, move slowly, walk gently. This is the most basic manners of a gentleman." The thin man's cold eyes turned, glancing at Klein, still half-raised hands, step by step to the door. With his left wheel in sight, he twisted the handle and slowly opened the door. Just as the door was ajar, he crouched and rolled forward, and the door clanged shut again, as if pulled by the wind. Well, Benson, on the top bunk, was startled by the noise and was about to wake up. At this moment, a melodious and quiet melody came in from outside, and a low and soothing voice saying, "O threat of fear, the hope of the crimson. At least one thing is true, life flies. One thing is true, the rest is a lie. The flower will die after one time." Note 1. The poem seemed to have a relaxing and calming power, and Benson on the upper bunk and Melissa in the back drifted back into sleep. Klein was so quiet that she almost yawned. The thin man's movements were so quick that he didn't have time to react. Looking at the closed door, he smiled and said to himself, "You may not believe it, but my shot was empty. Be prepared for the accidental discharge of blanks." Next, Klein listens to the midnight psalms and waits patiently for the battle outside to end. But for a minute, the peace, like the melody of a moonlit lake, ceased, and the night returned to its deepest silence. Klein silently slides the wheel to remove the empty space and waits for the result to appear. This lasted 10 minutes, and while he was hesitating to go out and investigate, Dunn finally came from the door. Smith's steady, gentle voice, it settled. Klein took a breath, picked up the revolver, took the key, barefoot, cautiously approached the door, and silently opened the door to see Dunn in a black trench coat to the knee, a half-top hat, and dark gray eyes. Smith stood opposite, turning the door behind him. He followed Dunn to the end of the corridor and stood in the faint crimson moonlight. Wasted some time going into his dreams. Dunn said quietly, looking out the window at the red moon. Do you know his history? Klein relaxed a lot. Dunn nodded slightly. An ancient order called the Secret Order. They were founded in the Quaternary. They were connected to the Solomon Empire. They were connected to some of the fallen nobles of the time. The notes of the Antigonus family came from them. And because one of their members was negligent, they entered the antiquities market. And Welch got them, and they had to send people to track them down. Before Klein could ask, he paused and added, "We're going to reverse hunt down some of them on leads. And, well, not necessarily with good results. These guys are as good at hiding as rats in a sewer. But at least they're going to understand that the Antigonus notes are probably already in our possession, or have a key clue. And that way, if it's not a very, very important item, they all give it up completely. It's their philosophy of existence. What if the notes are critical and important?" Klein asked, worried. Dunn smiled and did not answer. Instead, Hesiod went on very little about the esoteric order, and this success is due to your cleverness, which is a credit to you. And considering the possible and hidden dangers, as well as the help of inspiration in finding notes, you have a choice. A chance to choose. Klein vaguely guessed something and subconsciously breathed heavier. Dunn pulls back his smile, and his expression is solemn and serious. Do you want to be extraordinary? You can only pick the extraordinary from the incomplete sequence. You may, of course, forego this opportunity and choose to accumulate credit until it is sufficient for you to become the sleepless. That is, the beginning of the goddess's personal night guard, the beginning of the complete sequence of the church's mastery. Sure enough, Klein was overjoyed and, without hesitation, asked, "What sequence 9 can I choose from?" There must be detailed information to determine whether to give up or accept, and the specific choice. Dunn turned around, wrapped in a scarlet veil, looked into Klein's eyes, and slowly said, "In addition to the sleepless, the church has 3 sequence 9 potion formulations, one called Peeping Man, which is the ability that old Neil has mastered. Roseanne should have mentioned she can't keep her mouth shut." Klein smiled awkwardly and didn't know what to say, but Dunn ignored her and continued, "Our site for the voyeurist potion, and the unconnected part of the follow-up was obtained from the most penance, at a time when they were said not to have fallen, but were still committed to morality and discipline, to the pursuit of knowledge, and to the strict observance of secrets. And every initiation, after becoming a voyeurist, was to be silent for 5 years, to learn silence in order to practice and improve concentration, to do whatever they wanted. But don't hurt is where the saying 'watch the secret' comes from. The voyeurist has a comprehensive but preliminary understanding and mastery of mystical knowledge such as magic, witchcraft, and astrology, and knows a lot of ritual magic, but is easily aware of something hidden behind things and must be careful and in awe of extraordinary powers. We lack a large part of this sequence so that it doesn't fit into a chain. For example, it's sequence 8. Of course, maybe the church has it. This is pretty much everything I want. Klein nodded slightly, with the urge to choose. Fortunately, he remembered something else. What about the other two? The second is called the Corpse Collector, which is chosen by many of the cultists who worship death in the South Continent. After taking this potion, the dead will be mistaken for the same kind of spirit without wisdom and avoid attack. Can tolerate the erosion of cold, decay, and death breath. Can directly see some evil spirits. Understand the characteristics and weaknesses of many undead creatures and obtain some physical improvement. We have its subsequent sequence 8 and sequence 7. Ha! It's sequence 7 you can guess. Psychic. It was Daly's choice. Dunn described it in some detail. Psychics do seem mysterious and cool. However, what I want most is a mastery of occult knowledge. Klein listened without interrupting. Dunn Smith looked sideways at the crimson moonlight and said, "For third, we only have sequence 9. Whether there is something else hidden in the sanctuary, I don't know. It's called the Fortune Teller." A fortune teller. With her eyes constricted, Klein thought of the regret that Russell the Great had left in his diary. He wished he hadn't chosen between the apprentice, the thief, and the fortune teller.